Your question betrays your desire to get rid of these feelings. Your question betrays the fact that you are welcoming these feelings in order to get rid of them. That is not welcoming feelings.
But, I mean, you've spoken about happiness, and there is certainly peace. I mean, there's been a feeling of peace most of the time, but the feeling of happiness, which is what would normally arise when being aware of being aware just comes up, is not there. And
yes, but what's happening in your case, that as you're losing interest in objects, you're no longer distracting yourself with objects, and all this fear and tensions and anxieties, they're all beginning to bubble up. As you rightly described, this morning something caught your attention, you gave your attention to it, and that temporarily alleviated the discomfort of your feelings. And in fact, this is why most people are addicted to objects. Because as long as our attention is exclusively focused on the movie or whatever it is, there's no room for these feelings to come up. So these difficult, unpleasant, painful feelings are kept suppressed as a result of our exclusively focusing on objects. So in your case, you've lost interest in objects, or at least you've lost interest in objects as a means to provide lasting happiness. So now there is this big space in you which would previously have been filled by your attending to objects. And into this big space, all these feelings are bubbling up, which have been kept so successfully at bay all these years. And it's a bit of a disappointment to you, because you were expecting that immediately there would be a feeling of peace and happiness. The peace and happiness is there, but it's underneath all these feelings. That they have to come up and work through the system before we get to the reliable, unconditional happiness which is underneath them. So yes, you're doing the right thing, except that you still have this lingering feeling. You're no longer directing your attention towards objects in order to get rid of the feelings. You're now welcoming them in order to get rid of them. So you just that final little refinement.
I don't know how to make that refinement.
It's not something you again, when you say that, you betray the fact that you are trying to welcome your feelings with your mind. You are trying to discipline your mind to welcome something which, to be honest, is not welcome. And you know you should be, so you're trying harder with your mind, but your mind just can't quite do it. And then your question is, well, how do I do that with the mind? You're quite right, you cannot do it with the mind. The mind cannot accept, the mind is conditioned to reject what is unpleasant or painful. You can't do it with the mind. Fortunately, it's not necessary to do it with the mind. Awareness is like an empty space. It is already allowing these feelings. The fact that you're feeling them means it's too late. Awareness has already allowed them. So get rid of the word welcoming. It's too positive. It's too active. Replace the word welcoming. It's too positive. It's too loving. Yeah. Be more neutral. Replace the word welcoming with allowing, and see that consciousness or awareness is already allowing these feelings. What you're wanting to happen has already happened. You are this empty space, and these feelings are now bubbling up into this space. That's it. You've done it. There's nothing more you need to do. They're already present in you. It's too late for this room to reject all of us sitting here. We're already here. It's already accepted us. It doesn't need to start working on us in order to accept us. Its nature is to accept us. The space of this room cannot resist us. Awareness is like that. In other words, don't see this welcoming as something you do with your mind. This welcoming is what we are, not what we do. Or this allowing. The nature of consciousness is total openness, total allowing, total absence of resistance. We don't have to make it like that. We don't have to discipline consciousness to be allowing. It can't be any other way.
So do you mean just seeing that it's like that? Anyway, that the feelings are there just like the room is there and the birds are there and everything else?
Yes, it's seeing and feeling. Seeing, feeling. That what you are is the space of awareness. The open, empty, resistance-less space of awareness. And from that one's point of view, these feelings are allowed to be present for as long as they wish to be present. There is no motivation in awareness to get rid of them. It's the finite mind that says, I want to get rid of them. And I'm doing this practice called welcoming in order to get rid of them. That's why I say, and I'm sure you've heard me say this before, sometimes that the test of whether we're really welcoming our feelings is, can I live with this feeling forever? And the answer must be yes. If the answer is no, then we know that we're welcoming our feelings in order to get rid of them. And that's not welcoming them, that's just more agenda of the separate self.
But they do become, I mean, they change all the time, but they do become very uncomfortable, and it's hard to be completely neutral about that.
Well, if you're in physical discomfort, of course, make yourself as comfortable as you can. But if you're in emotional discomfort, then be courageous and just totally face these feelings until there's no resistance to them. What's the worst thing these feelings could do to you?
The feelings can't do anything to me. It's more that I suppose I want so much what I had a few years ago. It was for about 3.5 months, and I suddenly woke up and the whole world had changed, completely changed. And there was never, I mean, for all of that time, there was never any negative emotion about anything, any specific negative feelings or any non-specific negative feelings like these ones. It was just an amazing period of wonderful happiness when everything was right, even though things in my life was going wrong in some ways. And then it faded, and I've still, it has to be possible to get back there, where it was no effort to be aware of being aware, it just happened.
But it wasn't lasting happiness. It was a state. And
it felt lasting at the time.
It felt lasting at the time, but time has shown that it wasn't lasting.
Yeah.
And if you're longing for that, you're longing for a state. You're longing for something that comes and goes. You're longing for an object. Your happiness is still invested in objects. It's past. It was limited in time. It may have been wonderful, but it was limited. It's not what you really want. Yes, if it could have lasted forever, then it would be what you want. But anyone that's ever had a moment of happiness, if that moment could have lasted forever, that would be what they want. So this moment lasted for 3.5 months. But it passed. And now you're longing for it to come back. In other words, you're longing for a state of the mind to come back. What you want is not a state of the mind. All states of the mind, by definition, change. It's not possible to have a state of the mind that doesn't change. States of the mind, by definition, that's what a state is. It comes and goes. So what is still present now that was present during those 3.5 months?
Just the understanding that I am just
Your
awareness,
yes.
and that there aren't limits. But it's stayed as an intellectual understanding, and it comes and goes as a feeling understanding.
Yes. I'm not saying that the experience you had then wasn't a genuine experience of happiness. It was like the patch of blue sky peeping through the clouds. It looks as if it has a limit to it. In fact, the blue sky doesn't have a limit to it. So yes, it may have been it was obviously a very real experience you were having. But you're now conceiving of it as a state, and you're seeking it as a state. You're looking to reproduce that state. You want it to come back again. And that's preventing you from going in your experience to where that happiness really resides, because you're looking for it in a place where it isn't. You want to get rid of these feelings in order to experience that state. No, it's the opposite. You have to get rid of the feeling of wanting to go back to that state and face your feelings. You want to get rid of the feelings and go back to that. What you want is on the other side of your feelings, or underneath your feelings. Forget about the state. Totally open yourself. In fact, you don't even need to open yourself. Be knowingly the openness in which all these feelings appear. Until there's no resistance in you to them. It's your resistance to the feelings that is perpetuating them. Just try it if you have another sleepless night. Just when these feelings are coursing through you, just establish in your experience, I am the empty space, the empty aware space in which these feelings are appearing. And I'm just going to be that knowingly, without the slightest impulse to do anything to these feelings. So it's not even something you have to do, just notice that you are that already. And be very sensitive to the impulse to get rid of these feelings.